I'm at 3108 Leonora Drive in Dayton, Ohio, doing a sanitary lateral inspection for the purchase of a home. We're looking for any structural issues, broken pipes, root intrusion, anything that may be of concern to the buyer. The access here is a cast iron clean out in the floor in the laundry room, which is right inside from the garage, but it's at the very front of the house. The restriction here is there's no access further back in the line, so we're only going to be able to locate from this access point. We're limited, and as we go down, you'll see that this has a sweep in it, and so basically it forces my camera to only go out towards the street. Most issues we find are outside, but I just wanted to basically show how we are limited to go from this clean out downstream. So we'll get all the exterior pipe inspected, but the interior pipe, the interior cast iron, there is no access to be able to inspect that line, and this clean out does not allow me to go back upstream and only allows me to go downstream. So, knowing that cast iron is a I don't know what just happened, but something just was flowing. I don't know if I knocked something loose, but it looks like something is that it unleashed and the water went down. So there may have been potential soft clog. I don't know how long the house has been sitting empty, but you can see the water running and nothing is on. And I heard it kind of whoosh when I got my camera forward. And so we'll see. I'm only not far past the base of this clean out. And so there may be a little edge here. You can see there's some chunks of stuff. So maybe it's what was left over when the house when it was left. Seems to be flowing now, and so we'll push out and we'll look at the line, but there's a lot of water flowing through here, so it may have been backing up and I just poked through a soft clog. My camera lens is still above the water level, which is good. That camera lens is only about ½ an inch off the bottom of the pipe, and so it's not very high. What I was wanting to say about cast iron is that it is kind of a rough material to gauge. It does rust, and so it's hard to tell how thick or thin the walls are. You're looking for any obvious holes, stuff like that in these situations. But you really can't tell how much life is left in a cast iron pipe because of that. It can rust from the outside also, and so kind of depends on how good a pipe it was to begin with, and then it also can depend on what is in, sometimes even soil conditions can determine how fast it rusts and stuff like that. So there's stuff that's been in the ground since the 40s that's great, and then there's stuff that was put in the 70s that, is already rusting through, so you just don't really know. You're looking for any holes, like I mentioned, and it looks like that's what was causing that blockage. You can see, I think it's just toilet paper, but it could be some other stuff, maybe some grease, but could very well be some wet wipes. That's something that I always note in my whenever I find any cast iron, is that cast iron, by its nature, obviously has rough edges on it because of the rust. And using a wet wipe, or using wet wipes in general, they can catch on it, and since they don't break down like toilet paper, it can very easily cause a soft clog, especially if the line's not being used regularly, and it can catch on the line and build up. Now, toilet paper, on the other hand, will usually break down. Very expensive toilet paper sticks around a little longer than the real thin stuff, but toilet paper is designed to disintegrate when it's wet, and that's kind of the whole, so that it doesn't, even if it catches on stuff, it doesn't cause a backup. Obviously, wet wipes won't do that, and so they can cause pretty big issues as far as backups are concerned. So you want to steer clear of them, especially with cast iron. They can cause problems in brand new sewers, but with cast iron, it's definitely something you want to steer clear of to avoid issues. Okay, so it looks like we are finally switching into clay at about 40 feet here. The footage counter, I don't pay a whole lot of attention other than reference, to be able to reference the video and the footage. It goes by the rotation of the drum that the cable is held in, so I can sit here and manipulate it without moving the camera. If there is an issue, I locate it directly with the sonde, the locator that's built into the camera head. So it's usually close, but say 40 feet, it's 40 feet from where it comes out of the drum, not necessarily 40 feet inside the pipe. So I have some bit of residue here on this clay, just build up. And so it looks like from 40 feet on will be clay. A lot of times that also indicates a demarcation line in between private property and what the municipality has responsibility for, sorry. And so clay, on the other hand, has been around clay itself has been around forever, but clay pipe like this has been around for at least 100 years, 120, 130. And so the stuff doesn't really, as long as the ground doesn't shift and you don't get it full of roots, that's usually the main thing, is usually some root intrusion. But as long as you don't have those things, this stuff can be around for ages. So looks like we are in a valley. Looks like it was right before we went out to the main. And so it looks like it may have just been holding a little bit of water there due to probably the same thing, some toilet paper or something. So we'll let that run for a minute. I do notice that it looks like the tap, maybe the main has dropped. The pipe is above the opening for the tap. As long as the line's draining, that's fine, but this may be something that needs to be brought to the attention of the sewer department. They would be responsible for repairing this, if it is. But I'm trying to figure out if that's what that is, or if it's just it may just be a spider web. It's kind of hard to tell. It looks like a pretty hard. I think that's just a spider web. I think that tap is fine. It looks like the water's escaping well, and if it wasn't, that line would be a lot more offset and there'd be a lot of buildup. I think that if it had lifted, this would be full of water. Yeah, I think that's just the spider web. It was an optical illusion, the way the light was reflecting off of it. And so we're going to sit here for a second and let this drain out. So the line looked really good on the way out structurally. Didn't see any major issues. Obviously, the cast iron is ugly. It always is. It's just covered in rust. We did have the interior, that little spot that looked like I broke it open right here by the clean out. And so probably what I'll do is I will try to inspect this last part. We're letting it drain down a little bit. Like I said, I don't know how empty or how long this was empty, but a lot of times if wherever that stuff stops, when the last time somebody flushed, it can kind of dry out like paper mache and stick to the line if there's no flow, regular flow going through the line. So a lot of times we see a lot better when we pull back like this than while we're pushing, because we're not pushing the water up in front of the lens. And so you can tell all this we were underwater on the way out, and this is all visible now. And so the clay looks really good. We're at about 78 feet to the main. I'll try to punch a little there to clear off the lens. Clay looks really good. A lot of times that's where we'll see most of the root intrusion and stuff. And this all the seams look really tight on the connections. Don't have any root intrusion. There you go, out to the cast time about 40 feet. So 40 feet out to about 80 feet is clay, and then the first 40 feet is cast iron. And so you can see there is some buildup on the bottom of the pipe. That's why it's kind of flat. That could be mineral deposits, just buildup from years and rust. As long as the line is flowing, you can do a descaling on these, but there are different opinions on that. If you talk to different plumbers, just because, as we talked about before, you don't know how thick the walls of this pipe are. And descaling, what they do is they basically run through there and try to clear all those rough edges, that layer of rust off the edge, and then kind of it clears out the bottom there. So you have more of a rounded bottom of the pipe instead of having that flat buildup of, like I said, a lot of it's the rust and the mineral deposits from the water. You see that a lot in a lot of places where the water's hard, where you have a flat bottom on these. I think that's what was causing that blockage. And it looks like a buildup of water. It could be the way it's wadded and stuff. This could actually be like a buildup of like paint and construction material. Maybe got wadded up, turned down the toilet, but it's most likely toilet paper or a wet wipe wrapped up that got tossed and flushed, and it was the last thing that went down before the house was left empty. You know, it actually could be like a ball of paper that was stuck down in a toilet flange or something to try to plug it, and then somehow got knocked down in the pipe. So it looks like a pretty good ball. Looks like that was done on purpose. So I'm going to pause the video for a second, and I'm going to run a bunch of water behind this. We're going to see if we can see how well that moves. We just want to make sure that that's going to get its way out to the main and not sit in the line and cause an issue. Okay, so we're only 25 feet in. This is what I think I moved. It was holding some water. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to also flush the toilet with the video recording and try to make sure we can send that piece of material down the pipe. I think if we could get it out to the clay, it'll be fine. We just need to get some water to build up behind it area so that it'll push it on down. Should be a pretty big rush. Taking a little bit longer than I expected for that water to get there. Huh. Move back and forth here and see if we can get this to move. If I put my camera right there, it'll help the water build up behind it a little bit better. I'm going to go ahead and flush the toilet again. There we go. That's what we want. And now it's starting to break it up a little bit. So I'm going to do that again. I'm going to try to get this out. We need about another 10 feet. We can get it moving a little bit and get it broke up and moving. That would be the best situation. There we go. That's kind of what you're seeing is what should happen, but you use the cast iron kind of holds on to it a little bit, as you can tell, and then once the water built up, you can tell it finally took off. And that's what we're looking for. Make sure it makes its way down. And we should be out to the cast iron. This has got a lot of pitch right here, you can see in the bottom left-hand corner. In good shape. I think that made it, that pushed it all the way out into the clay, and it's gone out to the main. That's what we're looking for. So it's probably just dried from the house being empty. We just want to make sure that all this is flowing freely. But the line looked really good. I really didn't find anything. Structurally, the line looked great. I mentioned all the stuff about the cast iron. So you may have to maintenance it here and there. Obviously watch what you flush down there because the inside edges are very rough. And it's obvious by that chunk of material that was already in there. You kind of see how it very easily sits there, and you need to get enough water behind it to push the stuff on down. And that was made worse because I was probably sitting there and it probably dried out completely sitting in that spot, so it took a while for it to loosen up. And so there we are. So yes, I did push something out of the way. And you could see Must have got caught like right here, but the line is flowing pretty good. I'm going to sit it right here and we'll flush the toilet again and make sure everything that's behind it that we cannot inspect is flowing, nice and quickly. The fixtures will be flow tested also to make sure that everything is running smooth. Kind of strange. So the water is flowing. You can see the water starting to drip off the edge of the camera slowly, but we just want to try to make sure that there's nothing in that line. We try to run as much water as possible. Make sure that since there was that spot with the material buildup right there at the entrance of the clean out, we want to make sure that there's nothing behind it and all this water is flowing. Usually it's a lot bigger rush from the toilet when it's flushed. It may just be harder to see the rise and fall of the flow from this angle because we are looking down into the water from the top. Yeah, you can see it speed up. And so it's probably rising and we just can't see it from the camera angle that the water level's rising up closer to the camera. Okay. So everything looked good. So do want to just kind of pay attention to that. First get in here and start using all the fixtures. I said that there will be a bunch of water sent through all these fixtures to flow test them a little bit, but they are. But from this point out, the line looked good structurally. I didn't see any issues. You just have the old ugly cast iron stuff and. So you do just want to be careful of what's put down the line. But the line looked great structurally. I didn't find any issues. I would pay attention to this spot right here by the clean out just in case, where I popped loose that little bit of a soft clog, probably toilet paper, or it kind of more looked to me like it may have been something that was shoved into a toilet flange while it was maybe the flooring was being done or something, and they crammed that in the toilet to keep the smell out or keep some other debris out, and it went on down the line. But at any rate, we did get it to flow on down the lateral and out to the main, so it's not an obstruction any longer, and the line looked good structurally. So that'll end the inspection for 3108 Leonora Drive.